Hello everyone, and welcome to this Motor Trade Radio Supplier Special with your hosts Philip Nothard and Curtis Hutchinson.
Hello and welcome from me, Curtis Hutchinson and Philip Nothard, to this Motor Trade Radio Supplier Special Podcast. This episode is dedicated to Generational, the specialist supplier of electric vehicle battery health checks and certification services to car dealers. Still a relatively new name in the UK dealer sector, Generational launched in 2023 to address the concerns of dealers and used car buyers over battery life by developing a way of measuring degradation through testing. Its services enables dealers to conduct battery health checks and certify the state of health of batteries for the growing volume of EVs now entering the used car market. Co-founded by CEO Oliver Phillpott, the founding team is made up of automotive engineers and data scientists with expertise from Red Bull Racing, Imperial College and Cambridge University. And we're delighted to be joined today by Oliver. So welcome to the podcast, Oliver.
Thanks, Curtis. Really excited to be here, and hi to you as well, Phil.
Thank you. No, it's a pleasure to have you on, and I'm certainly looking forward to hearing a lot more about what it is you do. So as I say, it's fantastic to have you on, and thanks for giving up the time to come on to the podcast. I mean, to start with, for the benefit of the listeners, let's start with some background on yourself and obviously how and why Generational was launched in the first instance.
Yeah, sure. So I think my journey into EV batteries has been quite an interesting one. I started out building software for leasing companies. The company I worked for had major players like Mercedes-Benz and Toyota Financial Services as clients. And I also helped launch a retail and dealer finance business in Germany with Hyundai. So I think automotive has really been in my DNA for a long time. But the real light bulb moment for the business came a few years ago when I joined a startup and I was managing a large electric fleet. We were working with pretty early generation EVs and also electric mopeds that were under heavy commercial use, and battery issues were a constant challenge for us. And the really frustrating bit was that we had no reliable way to check battery health, which for an electric fleet can make or break your business. A little later on, I met my co-founder who brought this incredible technical expertise from his PhD and his time at the Red Bull Racing F1 team. And, we looked at each other and said, there has to be a way to create a universal battery health check that is so simple that anyone could do it. And that really became our mission, making battery health transparent and supporting a healthy EV market. So we started Generational in late 2023. And shortly afterwards, we secured investment from the government via the Department for Business and Trade and the Advanced Propulsion Centre. And we launched the first version of our product last summer. And since then, we've just been going from strength to strength, really.
And I mean, Curtis mentioned it in the opening section there, but with battery degradation at the heart of what Generational does, can you outline the biggest impacts on battery degradation from your perspective?
Yeah, it's a great question, Phil, because, for 100 years, I think the automotive industry has relied on age and mileage to determine the value of a car. But for an EV's battery, which is the most fundamental component of an EV, those two factors are not really very good predictors. I think it's also an especially important question because for most people in the future, their EV battery will be the second most valuable thing they own beyond a house. So, they really want to look after it. In a nutshell, battery degradation depends on how the vehicle has been used, right? So things like rapid charging, storing the vehicle at a high state of charge. Deep discharges is something we talk about, which means charging the battery all the way up to 100% and then discharging all the way down to 0. And also how efficiently you drive, which determines how much power you're putting through the battery every day. All these things cause faster degradation. I think it's probably worth saying that generally battery degradation is much better than consumers expect, particularly right now in the UK market. And, if you use an EV correctly, it can last a really, really long time. But there's a fair amount of variation out there, and it really all depends on what kind of life that vehicle has had.
And Oliver, turning to your dealer proposition, how was this developed and what do you offer?
Yeah, well, it all started with some really fascinating consumer research. What we discovered was that UK car buyers have a clear preference. When given the choice, they'll opt for an EV where they can verify the battery's health. It's similar to how you'd want to know the mileage or service history of a traditional car. So we really built our dealer proposition around this insight. And what we do is continuously expand our database of supported models to cover, every vehicle and make and model of EV on the market. And our brilliant engineering team works diligently to analyze each new vehicle's battery system and add it to our testing capabilities. But we knew that, the technical capability wasn't enough on its own. We've been fortunate to work closely with Leo Nelson, who's the former marketing director at Sytner. And his expertise has been invaluable in shaping our offering into something that really gives buyers that crucial confidence they need when they're purchasing an EV. So what we've ended up with is a solution that helps dealers transform battery uncertainty from a barrier to EV sales into a powerful selling point.
And how would a dealer typically carry out one of your health checks and issue a state of health certification for it?
It's super straightforward. We've designed it to be simple enough that anyone can use it, even my mum. I can walk you through it. So you start with our app on your phone or tablet. You choose the make and model of the vehicle, and the app then guides you to the car's diagnostic port. And normally that's by the pedals. You just plug in our small OBD unit there. You tap to start the test in the app, and within about a minute, you have your results. So the system generates a comprehensive certificate that becomes a valuable marketing tool. It shows everything that a potential buyer wants to know. So the battery's health status, real world range estimates for different conditions like summer versus winter driving or city versus motorway use, and also details about the remaining manufacturer's battery warranty. And it's really that simple.
And can you tell us which dealers you've been working with and how they've benefited from your services?
Yeah, we're experiencing really exciting growth at the moment. So with dozens of dealerships now using our solution across the UK, can happily share a few specific examples. So Carbase is one of our early adopters. They operate several car supermarkets across the Southwest. It's a great business. Really love the team there. And after integrating our solution into their existing processes, they've actually seen a 300% increase in ad views on their EV listings. And that's a clear indicator that providing battery health information is something car buyers are actively looking for. We're also working with Drive Green. They're a specialist EV dealership that's won multiple awards for their work. Their MD, Richard Norris, he tells us that battery health readings are instrumental in securing about 50% of their sales, which again, I think really demonstrates the value of having this data. But what's particularly interesting is how we're helping traditional franchise dealer groups make the transition to EV sales. So one of our Vauxhall dealers, who's been in business for generations, has found that our system has actually become a crucial tool in closing sales. You see, they tell us it creates this powerful moment on the forecourt when a salesperson can confidently tell a customer, look, we can prove this car has a healthy battery, unlike that vehicle you're considering down the road. And I think that concrete assurance makes a massive difference in building buyer confidence. So we're working with dealers across the UK. And one thing we're finding is that, whereas in the past things might have been driven by being green, increasingly we find dealers are really thinking about EVs as a business case, saying these vehicles are a significant chunk of the market now, and we know they're increasing very quickly. So how can we do a great job of selling them?
Well, some fascinating insight here, Oliver. We'll be back with more on generational after the break.
You're listening to a Motor Trade Radio Supplier Special.
Welcome back to this generational supplier special with Oliver Phillpott. Now, Oliver, uncertainty around the issue of battery degradation is a concern for used car dealers. I mean, what is the right way for dealers to address and to talk about battery health in general with consumers?
Yeah, I think it's a really important topic, Phil. We try to keep things simple and transparent in terms of how we talk about battery health. So that's why we report it as a straightforward percentage. We don't use a grading system or some kind of verified range. The number we report is the number you need to know if you want to check the battery against the manufacturer's warranty. And that way of talking about battery health matches the new battery durability regulations under Euro 7. And it's the same as how your iPhone shows battery health, right? So I think it's a concept many people are already familiar with. And you can only get that number by plugging in a device into the vehicle and running a diagnostic. And as for how dealers should address it, personally, I think it's all about being transparent with customers. You know, you wouldn't sell an ICE car without the mileage, right? And one of the most powerful things we've learned, I think, is that honesty builds trust. So especially when you've got real data to share. And I think we help dealers understand what normal looks like for different vehicle ages and models, which means, you know, sales teams can speak confidently about battery condition with potential customers. And I think there's something else that's really interesting. So the data actually tells a really positive story. So I think the last time I checked, the average health across all the batteries we've tested was about 94%. And we've got a pretty good pulse check on what's out there in the market, right? And that helps dealers push back against those common misconceptions about battery degradation. You know, when you can show a customer concrete evidence that their potential purchase has a healthy battery, it completely changes the conversation. You know, you think about it, it's like, instead of trying to sidestep questions about battery health, dealers can actually lead with it. So you're not just selling a used EV, you're selling one with a verified battery health that you can stand behind. And I think that's a really powerful position to be in.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I mean, it is all about that transparency and clarity into it that helps that conversation. And I mean, just as a follow-up there, I mean, can you tell us a little bit about how your solution is different from what the OEM diagnostic tools offer? Is it that it is, you know, a third party and that gives that confidence, and what is different about it?
Yeah, so we will give you the same result as the OEM tools, which I think is important because that's really how warranties are measured, right? But I think our approach is fundamentally more comprehensive. So first of all, we've built something specifically for dealers selling used EVs in the UK market, right? So unlike manufacturer tools, which are primarily designed for service departments, ours gives dealers and buyers a certification with exactly the information they need to make confident decisions. So we provide you as well with that data that puts the battery health in context. So telling you not just the percentage, but what that means for a vehicle of that age and model. I think also, you know, as a startup, we've focused obsessively on usability. And I think it's interesting. We've actually had several franchise dealers who prefer to use our solution over their own OEM diagnostic tools. You know, they can complete a check with our pocket-sized device in minutes rather than dealing with bulky manufacturer equipment or any complicated processes there, right? And anyone can do it no matter where they are in the dealership. So, yeah, I think finally, the other thing that sets us apart is our commitment to support. So we've built direct in-app access, so you can chat one-to-one with our battery engineers, and that's something that generally no OEM offers, right? So every electric vehicle has its own unique history, and if a vehicle ever behaves unusually or has had a different life, our engineering team is on hand. And I think that level of specialized support simply isn't available with manufacturer tools.
And finally, Oliver, what you've outlined, you've been on an impressive journey so far. I'm just wondering, what are the current and future plans for Generational?
Yeah, we're definitely busy.
Yep.
There's several exciting developments in the pipeline that I think really show where we're heading. So first of all, we're expanding our technology to cover hybrid vehicles. It's obviously a crucial segment of the market, and dealers have been asking us for this capability. And I think also I get the impression dealers get a lot of customers saying, I've just bought this hybrid, but I'm only getting 15 miles on the battery. And having a way to be able to confidently assess those batteries is really important for them, because it might just be the cold weather, for example. We're also deepening our insights to help dealers make better decisions. So, for instance, when they're handling part exchanges, they often ask us questions like, is 90% battery health good for this specific vehicle, given how old it is? So we're building more contextual insights to help them have more informed conversations with customers. One of our most significant initiatives, I think, is building integrations with website provider platforms. It's a big personal mission of mine. We want to make battery health data a standard part of vehicle listings and bring more transparency to the online car buying process. You'd be surprised how frequently I see EVs listed with an engine capacity icon, for example.
Yeah.
And I think, there's precious screen real estate there. And I think we want to do everything we can to try and integrate with those businesses and make it easy for dealers to list this data.
I mean, it's just, fascinating. Just the final bits there, Oliver, around that, the way people have treated EVs the same as ICE vehicles on websites. And we know that very different in what information needs to be portrayed to the consumer, to the buyer, and what the buyer needs to know when making that purchase decision. And the fact there, as you say, that hybrid technology, because we know it's, as you highlighted there, a significant part of the market. I mean, everything you've just talked through there, the simplicity of it, that single point, that certification, that single percentage clarification, and then where you're talking about the benchmark measures around the market in more general informed information, I think it's obviously going to be very much welcomed, one, by the retailers having those conversations with consumers, but secondly by the consumers themselves, because clearly, the ongoing growth of EVs and new technology vehicles in hybrid technology is obviously a different way of communicating with consumers, and it's all about knowledge and expertise. So huge thank you for that, Oliver. It's been a pleasure listening to that insight from you on it.
No, well, thanks a lot, both of you. It's a pleasure to be here and great to chat.
I mean, it leaves me to say that, many thanks for obviously coming on to the podcast today and sharing, as I say, those fascinating insights on how Generational is addressing the issue facing both, as you said there, dealers and car buyers over battery health concerns. I mean, I know how busy you are, but what is the best way for the listeners to, if they're interested in learning more about Generational and what you've just taught through there, how can they get in touch with you, Oliver? What's the best way?
Reach out to me or follow me on LinkedIn. It's Oliver Phillpott. I try to keep it updated with what we're working on, so you can see all the updates there. You can obviously also find us on Google if you just search for Generational battery testing. And you can also book a strategy call directly on our website, so we can talk through your business and your EV plans, and share some best practices and things that we've seen that are working really well in the market.
Well, thank you for joining us, Oliver, and many thanks to you for listening to this Motor Trade Radio Supplier Special with Generational.
Thank you for listening to this Motor Trade Radio Supplier Special, presented by Philip Nothard and Curtis Hutchinson.